people thought he was going to win, but there was a real question about what the tone of his speech was going to be. What kind of tone would he strike? What did he say? What did you notice? What did he focus on?
Well, Farah, it's a decisive victory, which first of all is important because past victories haven't been so decisive. And that's part of what led to caucus infighting and seeing Erin O'Toole and Andrew Scheer taken down by their own party and their own people. They needed a decisive win for unity. And unity was one of the messages that Pierre Poilievre was delivering here tonight. He said he opens his arms to all Conservatives, that they are one party serving one country. In terms of the tone of his speech, I would say that it focused on some of the key issues of his campaign, which his political advisors, and frankly Liberal political advisors I've spoken to as well, think have legs. The number one issue he was talking about was affordability and the price of living. He talked about families trying to make ends meet. He introduced his wife, who is a Venezuelan immigrant to Canada, talking about struggling to make ends meet. And a lot of people, by the way, Farah, tell me she is going to be a secret weapon in his campaign, that they think she's a very powerful political force in her own right. He talked about the struggle to be able to pay the rent or buy food or gas. He also touched on a number of other issues like Arrive Canada app, getting rid of it. He promised to give control back to First Nations of their land to, quote, repatriate food production. Not a lot of details, but obviously the overall messaging here really being about issues that he thinks are kind of retail politics and resonate with the average Canadian. Take a listen to part of what he had to say.
Tonight begins the journey to replace an old government that costs you more and delivers you less with a new government that puts you first, your paycheck, your retirement, your home, your country.
So you heard sort of that speech there, Farah. We also heard about things like trying to speed up immigrants coming to Canada, working in the fields that they are trained in, a 60-day testing period for them to then be able to work in their chosen field if they pass the test. So we'll have to stay tuned to see, but certainly a very excited room here tonight who now have a new leader who will run against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, hoping to defeat him.
Mercedes, it's one thing to win the leadership of the party, but now it's about going against Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. What are the next steps for Pierre Poilievre, and what's the plan?
So Pierre Poilievre has to find a way to appeal more broadly to Canadians. And you could already hear that in the speech tonight. He was leaving behind some of the more fringy issues like replacing the governor of the Bank of Canada or cryptocurrency. And he was focusing on sort of these everyday pocketbook issues that a lot of analysts say the Liberals could be caught flat-footed on. They have been trying to appeal to people throughout the pandemic with their own policies, the Liberals, that people would feel in their pocketbooks. Now you're seeing Pierre Poilievre use the Conservative tact on that, saying, look how expensive the price of gas is. This is not an option. People have to drive their kids to school and get to work. I understand that in a way Justin Trudeau doesn't. He talked about the fact that he's the son of a teenage mother who was adopted, that his wife is an immigrant who came to Canada from Venezuela where her family had to flee. So he is trying to really equate with everyday Canadians that he hears them. Now, the question will be, how does he deal with things like his support for the convoy, a very divisive issue and something that the leadership of that convoy has faced criminal charges. I spoke to Jenny Byrne, who was one of the very senior strategists and the architect on this campaign, and I asked her if they're going to back away from that. And she kind of tried to defend it and said, well, it was a movement, lots of Canadians were frustrated. True, a lot of Canadians were frustrated, but the leadership of that has still been criminally charged. But you could kind of see them slowly backing away from that a little bit, but don't expect to see Pierre Poilievre go through some kind of radical, drastic change. They think they found a recipe for success, and they were actually able to do very well in Quebec, which a lot of people had predicted they would not be able to do. Now they have to organize to find a way to get out the vote across Canada. But Pierre Poilievre has some very powerful political organizers who are working for him. They're very good at it, and you saw that in part tonight.
Made it very clear, about how he felt about Quebec in his speech as well. He was talking about the Quebec people and how important French was to him as well. We only have a few seconds left. What's next, though? Is there a caucus meeting? What happens next, logistically?
Well, he's going to have to appoint people to represent him in the shadow cabinet, and he's going to have to find a way to bring different factions of the party together in that. It can't just be his people. That's a mistake that Erin O'Toole and Andrew Scheer both made. He's going to have to make caucus feel listened to. The previous leaders lost because of that, and he's going to have to get out on the road to get to know Canadians. That's something you're likely to see Justin Trudeau doing this fall, too. Really interesting, Farah. We're going to see two retail politicians going up against each other out on the road, probably more than in the House of Commons.